Okay, hi, it's Leonie here from Greenhard and
I'm
Kind.
Dave.
I'm joined by Emma from Little Silver Hedgehog, and we'll just chat about our stall and that we're really excited to be taking part in Etsy Made Local market online. So yeah, and I just wanted to tell you a little bit about our shop. I needle felt and I sew, and Dave.
I turn wood. I make bowls and various other small decorative items out of wood.
Brilliant. And I am Little Silver Hedgehog, so I'm little. I'm only 5'1". I make silver from silver jewelry from silver clay, and it's all inspired by nature and wildlife, and it raises funds for my hedgehog hospital. So I do make little hedgehogs, but I also make lots of other wildlife and nature inspired designs as well. So shall I kickstart with the questions?
Yeah, start with the questions.
So I'd love to know how you both got started with your crafts. What inspired you?
For me, I wasn't very good at woodwork at school, so they stuck me on the lathe. Keep me out of the way. I've been doing it ever since, on and off. So yeah, I learnt at school, turned several bowls and things at school, sort of several years ago now.
Do you still have those pieces? Have you kept those first?
One of those pieces that I turned at school, yes. It's quite a large elm wood bowl that's warped over the years. So we sort of stuck it at the moment. And then I got myself a small drill powered lathe, which I used in my dad's workshop when I was in my teens and early 20s. And eventually I got a bigger lathe and a better workshop and started filling the house full of bits of tin. So I started the craft store to get rid of them, really.
Excellent. What about you, Jenny? How did you start?
So I started to sew at school. So I did needlework at school, and my first project was a tabard.
Oh, right.
And lots of people had to make tabards then. But the thing that really inspired me was I made a Victorian mouse and her clothes and a bonnet. So that kind of inspired my love of fabrics and crafting and making. I've still got the mouse, and she's in quite bad condition now, and also she just clothes.
You're not going to restore her?
I might do. I actually, when I was looking at the questions, I thought, oh, maybe I should restore her to her former glory.
Nice little project.
Yeah, and then needle felting. I just did a one-day workshop, and then after that, I just sort of carried on with needle felting, and it's just grown and grown. Quite obsessed with it. How did you course, Emma?
So I make jewelry from silver clay. I did a course in traditional silversmithing, and I loved it, but you know, it took me forever to make each piece. And what I really loved doing during the course was using the rolling mill. So that was to get textures like from leaves onto the silver. So I really loved doing that. And then one day I was given a gift of a silver clay starter kit, and I thought, what on earth is this silver clay? And it literally is what it says, clay.
Yeah.
So like pottery clay, you roll it out, you can roll it into balls, you can turn it into a slip by adding water and paint it onto leaves and things, and you literally, it will fire to solid silver. And if you want to do things like emboss leaves or any kind of grasses or really anything that you find in nature, it's just a brilliant way to be able to do that, and without all the palaver of all the stuff that you need if you were to set up as a traditional silversmith. So this, I don't know if I show you the right way, but this is a little seed pod.
Oh yeah.
And literally, I've started painting this with silver clay. So this is basically, I make a slip, which is just adding some water to the clay, and then I paint layers of it. So this is a real seed pod from the garden. And then I'll add layers and layers and layers, probably about 8 layers onto this seed pod, dry it, then I will fire it, and that will turn into a solid silver seed pod. So it literally is taking something unique from nature and casting that into silver forever. So I think that's just something amazing, loving nature, but also being able to treasure that piece. There will never be another one that's exactly the same, and that's what I love about that kind of project. So yeah, that's amazing. I'd love to know with you, where do you find the kind of fabrics and the wood for your projects?
Well, the wood is mostly rescued, sometimes from the log basket.
So
excellent.
Sometimes this was.
Oh, I love
That's a bowl. It's made from ripple maple, and we found it on the campsite when we were on holiday last week.
Wow.
The rough log.
Gosh, you did that in that time already?
Yeah, they don't take long to make, the bowls. That's what I love about wood turning. It's because my job, I'm a stone carver, and you're staring at the same piece of rock for days and weeks on end. You can pick up a log, take it into the shed, and a couple of hours later you've got something finished. A ripple on the grain. And
I can do with that. I need a bowl. 2 seconds. Here's a bowl.
Kicking around the campsite when we were on holiday last week. So.
That's beautiful as well. The way the colours like come out from that is amazing.
Yeah, and you got that lovely. I don't know if you can see it. You've got that lovely sort of ripple in the grain there.
Yeah, it's beautiful. That's amazing. I didn't know either. Well, it would take me.
That was just a lucky find on the campsite.
Yeah.
But working at the Minster, I mean, when a tree comes down, they often, have to cut a tree down for whatever reason. I sort of bring a few bits of that home. So that's where most of my timber comes from, is rescued from the what they call them, tree surgeons when they come. Yeah.
I love that. Reclaimed. I think that's really good. The kind of the sort of the recycling, the reclaimed sort of ethos behind it.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. A lot of my fabrics, especially the fabrics I use for lining, 1980s fabulous vintage fabrics, and some of those my mum bought a job lot in the 80s of fabric, and then she passed it on to me eventually. She didn't want to carry on, and I'm still using some of it. I haven't got much left now, but I've still got a few special bits, and also I love to go around jumble sales and charity shops and try to pick up vintage fabrics and old curtains, that sort of stuff. Sometimes I do use a few new fabrics. I find that black fabric's really hard to find in vintage, so sometimes I might buy something, some black fabric, but mostly I try to use reclaimed or vintage or recycled, because I just like the idea of particularly keeping things away from landfill. So it's and that's why I also make lots of tote bags, and just so that you can use those instead of plastic bags going shopping.
I think that's very important. Yeah, these days with just all this sort of the environmental concerns and so on, that's such a brilliant message to have. Reusing and recycling and reclaimed is so important, I think. That's brilliant.
Yeah, and then my wool that I use for needle felting. So I always try to use an ethical supplier, so that the wool comes from a non-cruel production. So that's what I try to do with my wool, just to make sure that's ethical as it can be as well.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Love it. Such a cute piece.
Thank you. I noticed that you've got a very strong media presence, and I just wondered if you had any hints for people to be able to grow their social media.
Yeah, I think yes, I've definitely got, I think, thousands, something like 14,000, I think, on Facebook the last time. I think that's amazing. And I think, firstly, don't get daunted by looking at kind of what other people have and so on. That's taken me, years and years and years and years to build up that following. So I think the first thing to do when you're trying to grow your social media is don't kind of be daunted by some sort of huge target. I'm across all sorts of social media channels, but I think if I was starting again, I'd really focus on one channel and trying to build that. So maybe pick one if you're on one of the channels already, maybe, and you're familiar with it, maybe start with that and start trying to build your presence on that rather than trying to do everything, because you could literally spend your entire life on social media and never do any makeup.
Yeah.
Build yet, really.
Yeah, that's the challenge, isn't it? Having the social media and make at the same time.
Absolutely. So I think, yeah, focus on one of those channels. I think having pictures and video really, really helps people. I mean, I have the benefit of some very cute hedgehogs.
Yeah.
Not everyone's going to have those, but I would say definitely having something cute does help your social media presence. People like it and they share it. I don't know if you've got a cat that visits your studio, or if there's anything like that that you might be able to kind of show in your. I think that's a really good idea, but also just anything where you're kind of out and about. Nothing is worse for social media than someone just saying, here's something I made, it's £30, buy it now. The various social media channels have all of these kind of complex algorithms behind them that will stop them showing your posts to your followers if they think it's anything sales related. So the worst thing to do is, here's my product, buy it now. You have to find a kind of subtle way to try and tell people about your products with the sort of sales being a subliminal message. So maybe if you've got a piece like the lovely story of the piece of wood turned into the bowl, maybe if you'd taken a picture of that piece of wood when it was in its natural form, and you know, this is our wonderful camping trip, and this is a piece of wood that I found, and then here's the finished result, telling that story, which then brings in the pictures of that wonderful day, and it tells that unique story of that particular piece. The same with your work, Leonie, if you've the stories of you making it. So I love the story of the vintage fabrics and from your mum. So I don't know if you've got anything that's like any old pictures. People love that personal story, and then you can showcase your finished product at the end, but it's a kind of really subtle way. So anything that makes your product unique and tells your story. People always want to ask me, how did I become a hedgehog rescuer? And
that's one of our questions for later.
But I love that your mum left you that wonderful heirloom of all those fabrics. A wonderful story, and that will be completely unique to you. So that's the kind of stuff that really works, and it's where your passion will come across, and where people will, when you come into branding, it sounds fancy, but that's how people get to know you and your story and what makes you unique. So every maker will have that. They'll have what inspired them, what started them off, the stories behind the pieces that they make. So I think start small, interact with people. So don't just post and run, respond to people, and take the time to really build a relationship. And then I find people come back and buy more. Most of my people who buy things are repeat buyers, and they buy because they like the product and they like the story. So they will come back and buy more if you build that relationship with them, definitely. So, but it is a slow burn, I think.
Yeah.
Will take a while, not overnight, but yeah, keep plugging away and you'll definitely get there. So talking about our things that have inspired us, I'd love to know what your favourite pieces are. I think you've kind of sort of touched a little bit on this, but what your favourite creations were and what inspired you?
Yeah, I mean, we're really inspired by a lot of myth and legends and fairies and goddesses and folklore and we love visiting places around the country, you know, that have connections to kind of like Arthur or you know, ancient sites. And used to drive our poor girls mad when we went on holiday, because we always had to visit a stone circle or a church.
I love a good stone circle, nothing more.
Now they're grown up, they're really happy they don't have to come on holiday with us anymore.
I had to do that growing up. Yeah, lose track of the circles, but I still do it, so I must have loved it.
Yeah, I know. I think it's just when you're growing up, you don't want to, do you? But then afterwards, you do carry on. So that's definitely where we get our inspiration from. And
I'm really inspired by the natural beauty of wood. The piece down here which I did rescue from the log basket actually.
Oh, wow.
That's a log, and that's a piece of oak.
Yeah.
And it's got a really, I don't know if you can see it on the thing. It's got a really full grain to it. That I think absolutely beautiful and the natural and unique. So it's That's
is there ever a dilemma? How much do you do to a piece? Like when to stop, or is it with turning? Is it basically just when the wood is at it's kind of you've done as much as you need to do?
Yeah, when it's becomes the shape that you hope you've intended to make it. Sometimes something like this. It was just a rough log that I just put on the lathe, turn the outside to get a chucking point. Then you polish that, then you turn it round, then you hollow it out, and you see what shape it comes out at.
And does it surprise you sometimes?
Yes, it does actually. And sometimes you get other shocks. Is when you discover you go a bit thin and there's a split in it, and a bit flies up past your ear, and it makes the jump. So
I think a lot of the time the thing that you like the most is the last thing you made, isn't it? So I've been making some wreaths.
Wow.
I really love this one, and I don't know if you can see there's a little tiny sleeping mouse on it.
Oh, so cute. How you get that so detailed, that's amazing.
And I love autumn. I just love pumpkins, toadstools. I love the autumn and just the feel of autumn. So yeah, I really enjoyed making those. I've made another one that's got a big squirrel on it. So yeah, they're quite exciting things that I've been making at the moment. So
as well, and it means the hedgehogs are going to sleep soon, so that's always good.
Yeah. So yeah, I might have to make one inspired by your hedgehogs. Make one with a hedgehog.
Oh yeah, and a hedgehog I think would do really well. I think any wildlife I think people love, don't they? In nature.
What's your favourite piece, Emma?
Do you know, I'm a bit much like you. I think every time I create something, I think, oh, that's my favourite. You probably can't see because they're so tiny. But these are my kind of latest creation. I will hold it up and see if you can see it anymore. But I've been making book charms. This is a prototype one, but they're really, really, really tiny. So they will be little pendants or little charms for on bracelets, but they literally open up. So I'm going to.
Wow.
This is what I love is that I'm going to start working with because there's so many like yourselves, fabulously talented craftspeople, and I've been thinking for a while, how do I work with other people, but still work in silver, which is what I do. So I'm going to hopefully work with a number of different illustrators. So inside, I'm going to put so there'll be real pages inside each book, and hopefully work with some illustrators so that they'll have really, really tiny little illustrations inside. So some without, because people prefer to add. I guess if you've collected a leaf on your being out exploring, you might want to stick a little leaf on one of the pages. But I'd love to work with some illustrators, artists, to create some really, really tiny little illustrations to go inside. So I think it's one of my favourites, and also it's just been one of the most difficult things.
Yeah.
It sounds like a simple concept, but trying to work out how to close them, and I have to solder all the little loops on, and then trying to work out how to get pages inside without them ripping out. It's been a complete nightmare, but I'm so pleased with the finished thing. So I think, probably my favourite. And they do have a hedgehog on.
That's wonderful.
They have to work with a binder as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah. I think one of my silly questions was, who's your favourite hedgehog character?
Oh, there's so many, aren't there? Amazing. Yeah. But I think probably Mrs. Tiggerwinkle. I think from Beatrice, I think has to be just the love, and they remind me of my childhood. And I think, like you, stays with you. And been lucky enough to visit Beatrix Potter's house, where the stories were obviously inspired. Yeah. That wildlife connection, and the Lake District, which is just beautiful. So that said, I don't think I ever had a vision that this is what I was going to end up doing, but it must have had some sort of, there must have been some sort of subliminal message somewhere, don't you think?
I was going to have Mrs. Tiggy-Winkle as my favourite hedgehog character as well.
Why?
I've always loved Beatrix Potter, and I just love the pictures. And I think there's where she changes back into a hedgehog and runs away, and you can just see her washing. I always love the pictures.
I love that. It's just magical, isn't it? And that kind of stays with you as a craft person, I think, over years. I'd love to know, because obviously you create bowls and felt work and so on, and I imagine, as you said, your house is kind of full of bits and pieces. Do you work from home, or do you both have a studio, or where do you do your work?
I've commandeered the garage.
Yeah.
So all the shop's in the garage. So I've got a lathe, I've got drills, and drill presses, and saws and table saws, and all the other sort of tools and stuff that go with it, sort of hiding
in itself.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a messy thing, because you turn a bowl and you're sort of almost ankle deep in shavings. So so you have to try and keep it in there and not bring it into the house.
Yeah.
You use the shavings, like you say you've got a wood fire, so do you use the shavings on those, or what do you do with?
Well, I experimented in the summer with making some briquettes out the shavings. I mean, during lockdown, but it just smouldered a bit, but they didn't burn particularly well. But I mean, I think it's so most of them go in the green bin to be tested. So.
The smell of the shavings is amazing, though.
Yeah,
I think
especially when the wood's green and fresh.
Yeah, it's amazing. And what about you, Jenny? Do you work from home as well? Or?
I work from home. I work all over the house. Yeah. So it's literally everywhere.
You're mostly based in the spare bedroom, aren't you?
I'm mostly based in the spare bedroom, but I have got my sewing machine on the dining room table at the moment. It's so much better. So but it's literally everywhere in our house.
So, light is important, isn't it? I think it's trying to find somewhere where you can sort of see clearly enough. I'm a bit like you. I work in a spare bedroom, but it's a north facing, so it isn't always brilliant. I've got lights everywhere with natural light bulbs that do help daylight.
Yeah,
they help. It's so important to get the lighting, especially if you're doing the delicate work like the needle felting.
It is my dream to have my own studio.
Me, baby.
But with fabric and wool, it's quite difficult, because you can't really have an outside shed, because you can't have anything at all. Fabric, so that's a kind of extension or something.
Gosh, that would be wonderful, wouldn't it? Like to have our
you never know, do you?
We'll be looking at years and we'll have our own amazing spaces.
And
Purpose-built workshop.
Totally. Oh, that's fabulous.
So Emma, who looks after your hedgehogs while you're on holiday?
Do you know, going away is the hardest thing, I think, everything I do, and so I have to be quite careful. If I want to plan a holiday, I have to really, really plan a holiday. So I'm really lucky that I have people that will help me out. So I've got a pet sitter. I've got 2 rescue cats anyway, so I've always got to have a pet sitter that comes round to look after them, and luckily she likes hedgehogs, so she will look after them. But I've also got a network of foster carers. A few years ago, I kind of thought it basically is better use of my skills to focus on the really sick ones here, and then when they're feeling a little bit better, they then go off to people who literally just feed and water them until they're ready to be released. And I'm really lucky that some of those foster carers will come round, and obviously they know what to do with the like the cleaning out and all that kind of stuff. They don't mind hedgehog poo, which have to be able to tolerate. So I'm really lucky that I have such a good network, and people are always offering. And again, the really good thing about a social media presence for me is that it reaches out to a network of people who can help volunteer or do things. There's no end of people that that want to help and support. So I'm really lucky with that. Otherwise, I think I'd never have. I'd never have a holiday.
Never have a holiday.
Yeah.
So I think that's so important to have that, and just so pleased to have those people supporting. I'd love to know a bit about whether have you ever done a joint piece together? Have you ever combined
Not
wood
as such.
No.
I sort of turn buttons for your bags, don't I?
That's the
what a great idea.
Dave makes my wooden buttons for my shoulder bags. So but when we saw the questions, we thought that was a brilliant idea. So we might try to do a joint project with wood and felt or wood and fabric.
Worked out how it will work.
Yeah.
Just yet.
No, but I think that'd be a great idea. I can't believe in all these years you haven't done something.
Yeah, I know.
Project.
Usually we're kind of, Dave slopes off to the shed and then I'm sewing or needle felting somewhere else. So
I think that happens.
Although
you get
a shop
your own thing.
Usually we're
and most of the turnings I do, I don't plan them. I just see what comes out of the piece of wood when I put it on the lathe. So,
I love the idea though of something like a hollow shape with some felty creatures inside or something. I don't know, but you'd have to wait for that to come along to let you do that. But we've been thinking, haven't we? We've been planning.
But we'll have to.
Yeah, no, that would be wonderful. I should look forward to seeing that. Maybe an event we should be sharing. Or even later in the year, so that would be amazing. We'll be able to share our pieces. Fabulous. I'm just looking at, we don't have a huge amount of time left. I can't believe how long we've been chatting for.
I know.
There's one question I meant to ask earlier, but you say when you fire your silver clay, do you need a special kiln, or is it just in a domestic oven, or?
So one of the brilliant things about silver clay compared with sort of traditional silversmithing is you don't need a massive amount of tools. So I literally have this mesh, metal mesh, and I fire on a gas hob. So literally all you need is a gas hob. Anything sort of the size of a 50p piece or smaller, you can fire in that way about 30 minutes, and it's fired to the solid silver. You can also use my weapon here. A gas burner, I don't tend to use that. It's too easy to melt the pieces, but I do use it. Silversmithing techniques, so I do a lot of soldering of kind of earring backs, or just to make sure that the jump rings are closed so people aren't going to lose their wonderful pendant. And so I do a lot of that. I did recently invest in a kiln, and there are things that you can do with clay in a kiln that you can't do on the hob. So I work in silver clay, but there's lots of other different types of clay, so things like copper clay and bronze clay, you can only fire those in a kiln. And the same sterling silver clay, which is a bit more, it's alloyed with obviously other metals, you can only fire that in a kiln. So if you want to experiment with all the different things, you would need a kiln. But for starting out and for kind of anything up to sort of, only producing a few pieces, a gas hob is absolutely fine, and you get, the result is it's still strong. It will still be a really, really sturdy piece. So I think it's great. People can experiment at home quite easily. So definitely hope people will be inspired. I do run courses as well, so if anyone is, I a challenge that people will be able to make something that they will love and want to wear literally within a kind of half-day course. So and people are often surprised, if you went to a silversmithing course, you wouldn't, it took me about 4 months to make a ring when I started, whereas you can make and a bracelet in a day.
So you need a 5-year apprenticeship, don't you, for a silversmithing?
And don't get me wrong, like they can produce things that are way beyond what you can produce with silver clay. So I think there are different. They have different applications, I think. And I look at the pieces produced and think, I'd love to be able to produce that. But I think for the sort of thing I like to do with the textures and imprinting, it's much simpler, and it means that I haven't had to spend a fortune sort of setting up and having that studio, which you'd have to do that if you were starting off in silver. So it is a kind of easier way into it, I think. So well, gosh, gosh, what a wonderful chat we've had. It's been amazing.
No, it's been amazing. It's lovely.
I found out so much about you and your crafts and everything.
Yeah.
I'm inspired. A piece of felt and a bowl as well. I've always loved wood. You know, my mum loves wood turned pieces as well. So when I tell her what I've been doing today, she'll be like, "Okay, where's my my piece?" Yeah, definitely. I think that's this event. The challenge is how much am I going to spend myself with all the other people?
Definitely. Yeah, and I'm looking forward to doing one of your courses in September.
Oh, that would be amazing. That would be brilliant to hear and look at how look at some of that inspiration, and maybe there must be folklore and everything. There'll be a way to capture that in the silver clay as well.
Yeah,
I think that's great. So many synergies between so many different crafts and the inspiration. I think so. It's wonderful to see that.
Yeah.
I think people just have a look around the other shops and have a look at what we do and hopefully get inspired.
Looks like it's going to be a really wonderful event and just be able to see so much. So it's great. Yeah.
It's literally it's keeping that spending under control, but it'll definitely be worth it from the look of everything. So.
Definitely. So
it's been so nice to chat to you both.
Yes, and you. It's been wonderful. Yeah. So we've learned so much, and
absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, and good luck at the weekend.
Yeah, good luck on the thing.
Take care.
Take care. Bye. Bye.